So a new report suggests the government should take lessons from the COVID inquiry to be prepared for more climate-related emergencies.
So, this report says there is a blind spot in our national security for climate-induced emergency. Let's talk to the Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for Public Policy Research, Dr. Maya Singer Hobbs. Maya, good morning. Thank you for illuminating us on this topic. What is a climate-induced emergency and why is it a security threat?
So, it's a great question. Climate-induced emergencies cover a whole range of things. So we just saw on the news announcement this morning, just before this segment, about Hurricane Milton heading towards Florida. That would constitute a climate-related emergency. One of the things that this report looks at as well is food security. So we've seen sort of food price inflation over the past few years, and 1/3 of our food price inflation is estimated to be due to climate risks, due to waterlogged fields or droughts in other parts of the world. And so these are the sorts of risks that this report was looking at.
And what are we, the public, meant to do then, Maya, to keep us all safe? I'm guessing this is an opportunity for massive transnational corporations to make money out of we, the little people, under the auspices of a climate emergency.
So what we want in this report and what we call for is for the government to take this risk seriously. So in the same way that our government, prepares for, other sort of national security risks, whether that's geopolitical nature or sort of other sort of risks, we want the government to be thinking about climate risks as part of its national security strategy. So thinking about what the implications of drastic weather changes might have, to sort of protect us and keep us safe.
So I was talking to somebody recently who has a child at university who's studying green issues, eco issues, how to save the planet. And he said that the eco group, the eco-zealots, forgive me, of which you possibly are one, realised that governments were not getting on board with this. They weren't ploughing enough money into this for these private companies. The private companies want more money. So in order to get the attention of governments, the climate lobbyists decided to tell us that we're all at risk, that there's a security risk, because governments have to act if they think they've got to keep their populations safe. Am I being very cynical here, Maya?
I'd say perhaps a little bit. I think one of the ways that I like to think about this, I sort of think of it on two levels. So when you go out of the house in the morning, you lock your front door. The risk is actually quite small that you're going to be burgled, but it makes you feel safe to have locked the front door. And similarly, on a sort of more national level, the risk of being caught in a terrorist attack is actually quite small, but we don't want our government not to invest in anti-terrorism activity. And this is the same. So some of these risks are small, but we want the government to be taking them seriously. And I think on your point about big businesses, this actually affects farmers, British farmers, and the NFU said that lots of their farmers have struggled this year because of waterlogged fields. They've not been able to plant as much crops. They've been struggling. And so this is really about protecting us as consumers to sort of think about, our food prices and are we safe, but also about looking after British farmers to make sure that they can make a living.
Yeah, but farmers are being told, don't grow crops.
That's right.
Don't grow crops. Let your fields go wild. The government will give you a bit of money. Then you can have some lovely, pretty wildflowers. No one will have any food to eat, but that's okay because we're saving the planet. Farmers do not want the government to save them from climate change. They want them to let them get on with their job with the subsidies that they require to produce the products for the British people.
So I think part of thinking about climate risk as a security measure means balancing exactly what you were saying. So thinking about our food security and how can we make sure we have food security whilst also making sure that we have bits of nature so that people can access nature and that, bits of land, particularly bits of land that aren't particularly productive, might be put aside for nature. We're absolutely not saying that we don't want farmers to grow their crops.
But Maya, we're talking about this at the day when we've heard a record increase in the population, massive increase, mainly through migration. And if farmers can't grow their land, we've had endless farmers on this programme. They call it wilding, don't they? That's the word, or rewilding. And so we used to be almost self-sufficient, and now we're going to be importing more food, which isn't that going to cause more problems for climate change?
So this is, I think, sort of the point about, you're right that we really need to be thinking about food security in a sort of holistic way. And I think one of the challenges here is that climate change is having a really big impact on farmers in Britain and overseas. So part of what this report calls for is to be thinking about our supply chains and our food supply chains, particularly if we're importing food from other places that are also suffering the effects of climate change. We've seen droughts in various parts of the world. We've seen flooding here. And so really what this report wants is for government to be thinking about how do you balance all of these risks? How do we import the food that we need to because we can't grow it here? How do we make sure that we're protecting our farmers and the land that is used to produce crops so that we have a sort of robust food security system, food production system here? And are we looking after the bits of land that we need to protect?